Hi, everyone who's joining. Shouldn't be too long before we start. So we're currently at 100 participants. Numbers are still going. So we'll just wait a minute and we'll get started. In the meantime, in the audience, if you want to say hi and where you're from, that would be awesome to have a bit more information of geography, because we do have a lot of outreach in Russia, since this was spearheaded by our Russian chapter, London as well. So we're expecting a lot of people from Europe. So yeah, just say hi. Already coming in from India, Toronto, Russia, Romania, Poland, Moscow. Oh, Montreal, that's closer to me. So let's get started. I'm very excited for this day. We have amazing guests. Welcome to the BCI 101 Online Global Series. This is day 2 of week 1. So we started yesterday with the Russian day. We had, I think, 6 or 7 guests. It was a 1.5 hour long event. Amazing response. It was in Russian, so no English. Today is the first international day, and we do have 2 other weeks. So 3 weeks total, 3 events per week, about an hour per event. So 9 events total. Today is number 2. So today, the day is about BCI becoming mainstream, and we'll dive into it with our guests in a few minutes. But just before, for those who don't know about NeuroTechX nor about the Center for Neurobiology for Brain Restoration, I will do a short introduction, since they are the 2 organizations behind this series of events. I'm just gonna mute Olivier for a minute. We'll get back to you in a minute. So NeuroTechX is an international neurotech community. Its mission is to facilitate the advancement of neurotechnology. If you want to tweet during this event, please use the hashtag #NTXBCI101 on social media. I would like to attract more people, since we do have a lot of events coming on. Our 3 pillars to achieve our mission are mainly community. So we bring people together, whether it's online now with COVID-19 situation or locally across our chapters. We do have a Slack platform. Education as well is our second pillar, where we try to give the tools, whether it's more on the scientific side of things, whether it's just general education about the field, or whether it's more technical by nature, like software development, hardware, and things like that. The third pillar is innovation. So we believe that once people are connected and have a strong network, they have the tools and the knowledge to go in the neurotech space, then they can start having impact in the real world with either creating their startup, joining company, but really making improvement in the field. So our different initiatives trying to address that sits on these pillars are mainly our NTX chapters. So we do have 20 chapters across the world. We do have student clubs, mainly for undergrads, to give them a chance to explore the neurotech field as early as possible in their career. Our NeuroTechX Slack, so an online community, we recently reached the 4,000 members mark. So we're really happy with that. A lot of engagement and discussions, mainly happening one-on-one. That's what we've seen. A lot of the people are kind of starting to connect on a general channels, and then they go one-on-one for private discussions. Our newsletter, so if you want to stay informed in the field on a monthly basis, our NeuroTech newsletter offers you a monthly recap of what's happening, whether it's on the scientific kind of like papers, research, businesses. So what are the new startups, new products, investments. So it's really 360 degrees around neurotech. And NeuroTechX services as well, which is a new initiative that we started recently. So as I said earlier, we do have 20 chapters around the world. We've done a lot of meetups, events across the world. This is what we mostly do. We do some events, some hackathons. We collaborate with other organizations for bigger events, but we like to do some more casual events that brings the community in different cities together. Across our meetups group, we do have 15,000 members, 23 student clubs, for undergrads, so hundreds of undergrads around the world playing with NeuroTech projects. So we're really excited about that. And our Slack platform, as I said, just reached 4,000 members. We're also launching a NeuroTech primer book, basically trying to answer all the questions we've received over the past couple of years that we've been doing NeuroTechX events. So all the questions that are recurrent, we're trying to put that in the book. So now we can go get the book, which is easier to answer at scale. Our NTX job boards, we're really excited about that. We do have a lot of positions every week, both in industry and academia. So huge volume. We've definitely seen a lot of traction, a lot of people going on the job board. So if you're looking for opportunity, right now might not be the best time ever for opportunities in company hirings, but in academia and industry both, obviously we do have a lot of positions on a weekly basis. So just quickly on services, the idea behind that is really to offer consulting and recruiting / headhunting services. We do have a lot of talent coming in our network, a lot of company looking for either talent or they do have mandates, jobs, whether it's prototyping or different consulting things that would like help with. We try to facilitate that connection. So we're not necessarily doing things ourselves, but we try to leverage the power of the network that we have to make both hands meet. So yeah, as I said, Slack, really excited about that. If you want to participate in the conversation for this series of events, but also after, for this series of events, please join our Slack with bit.ly/NeuroTech NTX-Slack and the channel BCI 101 if you want to continue the discussion after this 1-hour talk. I'd like to thank our two chapters, Moscow and London, who's behind this, this series of events. They've been doing great work of putting all of this together. Obviously, our partner as well with Skulltech, funded in 2011 in collaboration with MIT. And we're partnering mainly with the Center for Neurobiology and Brain Restoration at Skulltech. So thank you very much for helping us put this event together. And their open initiative, it's really about, that's why our philosophy is really aligned with NeuroTechX philosophy, where big science meets students in business. So with a bottom-up approach going from science to impact. So we're really happy to collaborate with them for this event. And today, day 2, as I said, we do have 3 amazing guests: Joseph Artuso from OpenBCI, from which you'll hear shortly, Olivier Oullier from Emotive, and Christoph Guger from GTech. So I will start with a short talk setting the table. Won't be too long. I'll just rapid fire a couple of key highlights in the field of BCI, why now we can say that it's becoming more mainstream, or maybe not, depending on where you're coming from and what mainstream means for you. And this is what the discussion will be about today. So with no further ado, I'll just jump right in with a couple of key dates in the field of BCI for those who are not necessarily familiar with the field. Obviously, this is not a lecture and this is not exhaustive. This is just a few key points that I think are worth mentioning to lead the discussion of today. So in the 70s, we've seen the first brain-computer interfaces seeing light. In 2002, the famous paper by Jonathan Wolpa, I think, which most would agree is the godfather of the BCI field, on communication and control. So when we pinpoint in time when the BCI field really started to emerge, I think that it's fair to say that in early 2000 is a good point in time. So a lot of research happening behind the scene. The public is not necessarily too aware of what BCI means and what BCIs are. And in 2013, we start seeing brain initiatives around the world. So US and EU leading in that domain with the brain initiative in the US and Human Brain Project in Europe. And then shortly after, a couple of years in 2014, 15, and 16, then we've seen major brain initiative unlocking a lot of money going to research, trying to understand the brain and commercialize then technology that will impact lives. So namely in Japan, China, Korea, Australia, and many countries have followed the lead for these massive brain initiatives. In 2014-15, we've seen Neurolaunch and IBT Brain Innovations calling themselves the first NeuroTech accelerators. So we've definitely seen that now we're not just talking about research, but there is more interest in the VC world. I'm taking those 2 examples because they were accelerators that were only focusing on neurotech. Obviously not saying that investors were not already investing in neurotech, but that was putting a flag in the ground saying this is a field that will see more and more businesses happening in the coming years. And in 2016 and 17, we've seen the attention of the public being taken by surprise, I would say, with big initiatives such as Kernel, Neuralink, and Facebook making the headlines and taking a lot of the public attention. So for a lot of the people in the BCI fields, communication control, these are the BCI heroes, a few of them, obviously there are many more, but the people that really unlock the field, the researchers behind them, as much as the patients themselves, spending hours, days, months training and trying to control BCIs, whether it's to control with the to control something or to communicate with the outside world. So that's what's happening in the research labs, centers, and now the question is, can we bring that in the real world, in real life? So some trials have started to appear. And in 2016, we've seen a shift, totally different from a lot of the research stuff to more of the public and people with a lot of money putting a lot of money behind such initiatives, BCIs, NeuroTech, and how it could disrupt and transform the world as we know it. So Brian Johnson was the first one, 2016, announcing his OS fund, putting $100 million in this fund. The idea was to come up with new human operating systems. The first company being funded was Kernel, his own company. We didn't hear much since 2017 until yesterday. So yesterday, Brian Johnson gave a little bit of an update. The initial objective was more about brain implants to improve cognition, namely memory. And yesterday, the updates that the world saw was that they are now pivoting a little bit more towards the non-invasive space with their kernel flux and kernel flow, MEG-based and FNIRS-based technology. So if you haven't seen the news yet, you can just Google kernel and you'll find a lot of news, a lot of updates on that, or you can go on the website and read the super long blog explaining the experiments and what they've been doing. Throw back in 2017 when Elon Musk announced Neuralink, a bit similar, big announcement, and then not much news until 2019, so last year, when they did a bit of their launch event with a recruiting angle in mind. The objective of Neuralink is to connect the world, the brain with the digital world. So if you haven't seen that in the sewing machine and how they want to approach that, just Google Neuralink, Elon Musk, and you'll find a lot of information on that. So I just wanted to highlight the authorship of the paper, which I personally found interesting. So for maybe the scientists in the audience, personally like the Elon Musk and Neuralink as the authorship of the white paper they published. Last throwback to 2017 with Facebook. So they announced what if you could type directly from your brain. So they announced very ambitious goal. The community was a little skeptical about that at first. So when they announced a little bit of a timeline in a nutshell, when they announced that they would type 100 words per minute in VR, obviously the scientific community was a little skeptical. In 2018, they joined the BCI meeting in Asilomar, and they explained their 10-year plan to invest and partner with research labs. So the scientific community was a bit more, I would say, welcoming on the effort, seeing that a lot of money with research labs will lead to an ROI positive in the field, despite the fact that they might not achieve the goals, but at least the research that will help push that forward. So won't spend too much time on that. I want to jump more into the consumer side of things as well, that we've seen a lot evolve. Here are just a few examples of form factor that we've seen, from glasses to cap to headphones in ear, to kind of like headphones that I'm hearing today, to VR headsets. So over the past couple of years, we've definitely seen a lot of different EEG devices. If we look just at the sleep domain, it's been crowded, a lot of devices, not necessarily all still alive today, but there's definitely a goal to try to unlock the potential of EEG for consumer devices at scale. Some companies have had more backlash than others. Throwback at CES 2018 when Brinco announced EEG recording classroom. So on paper, a lot of the research shows that with EEG, we can measure attentions, concentration, things like that, and that this could lead in improved learning. We take that theory and that research, we put that in real life on the head of kids at school. And what we get mainly is a backlash in social media and a lot of criticism. A little bit, we can compare that to Google Glass to some extent, where Google Glass was released, a lot of backlash, privacy issues and things like that. The world was not necessarily ready for it. So hopefully we'll have Brinco on week 3 to talk a bit more about that, their pivot, and what it means for consumer scale, consumer devices, EEG devices. So last point that I wanted to show, it's also that we've seen a lot of BS, not to say fraudulent claims. Mindo or Mindo, not sure how to pronounce it, is probably one of my favorite when they say that they can record your thoughts and replay them, and that the brain of your friends, partner, children will understand your thoughts, even if not precisely, of course. I would even add not at all, of course. So be aware of all these claims and red flags. NeuroTechX will try to do a better job at to highlight them and point them. We don't want to play neuropolice, but I think it's important to educate the population so that we don't believe necessarily everything we see. So I just wanted to set the table for today, because we do have, let me stop sharing my screen and go in a grid view. So Brian, I assume that we are streaming now in grid view because we have 3 awesome guests here. So we will start with a quick introduction about their company, their product. We'll go one by one, and then it will be more discussion. If at any point in time you have questions, please just throw them in the Q&A. I would like to see where the audience wants to lead us and what kind of questions they would like to see answered. So we'll start with Olivier, President of Emotive. Since you have a background, well, we'll do the same exercise for everybody, but I figured we'd start with you since you have a background also in business, and we do have a lot of entrepreneurs in the room. And one of the first things we learn in business is the elevator pitch. So for those who don't know Emotive, what would be the elevator pitch that you would give about Emotive?
Well, we've been around this business for a decade now. And the mission of a company was to make affordable, scalable, yet scientifically rigorous EEG devices in order to provide access to brain tech to the masses. I've been involved with Emotive since the very beginning as a board member. Even when I was, back then I was a professor of behavioral and brain sciences at the university. And the reason I joined Emotive is because science matters first to me, and it was the company with the biggest amount of scientific publications in the consumer EEG space. That's pretty much what we do. So the products range, we do end-to-end 360 from designing, manufacturing, distributing the hardware. We also have a platform that allows us to collect data at scale. We got software suites, algorithms, and we provide research as a service. And more importantly, I think now is integration of NeuroTech and the algorithms in people's lives, especially in the workplace. And the fact that the big pivoting of a company was not just to be a hardware company, but to understand how we can use whatever we've learned over 10 years of data collection in various contexts, in various industries, so that we can help people in their everyday life, starting with the workplace, by really creating closed loop interfaces between people and their workstations.
Awesome. That was a long elevator pitch, but I think we get it. No worries. I'll lead you because I do have a lot of questions, obviously. So Emotive is known for their products like the Epoch, the Insights, and now more recently Emanate, the headphones. So going in the work environment, do you see, we just presented BrainCo, which was a good example. Do you see any backlash or any pushback to having these devices and EEG recording devices on the workplace?
Yes, but I don't think more or less than any tech or any change in things that you introduce in the workplace. Basically, of course, people, because of all the, I would say, fantasies that people spread in the news, that they can read minds, they can predict this or that, people have inaccurate ideas of what can be done and what cannot be done with NeuroTech. And I guess that personally, but now also at the level of the company, what I always do is to be very clear about what we cannot do and what questions we can't answer, and to try to be realistic. Now, when it comes to adopting the technology, it's also about trying to educate people as to what is possible, what is not possible, and more importantly, with our business partners, to have a charter on how the tech should be used, how the data should be used, how the data should be protected, anonymized, and what they commit to do and not to do with the data. I think that is extremely important. But history, you know, when you look at history of science, you've got so many examples of technologies, innovations that have been hijacked from their initial purpose, even if the purpose was noble, that we need to be extremely careful. First, to protect people, and second, to protect our company from issues like these.
Very interesting. And especially when we talk about brain data and at scale, it raises new issues. And recently, actually, Emotive has launched probably what is the biggest crowdsourcing / citizen science experiments probably ever in the EEG space with brain versus virus. Yes. In the COVID-19 world. Do you mind explaining a bit more? What's the project? What's the idea? Sure. The idea? What kind of neural correlates?
10 years ago, I was working for a French prime minister, and we released the first ever government report on using and leveraging behavioral and brain sciences in order to improve policy making, and especially communications and prevention in public health. The fact that everything that is related to communication in public health these days, in terms of data, is mostly based on either now online data, conversations analytics, if the government is advanced, but mostly surveys, and sometimes the prevention campaigns are not tested. Part of the problem was that 10 years ago, when I was leading this neuroscience and public policy program, which was a premiere, the only thing that was available was to collect data in scientific lab and medical research labs. What we've achieved with brain versus virus is the possibility to collect data at scale with people in their homes using Emotive technology. This is non-commercial study, where they can basically, they're going to see some of the public service announcements, recommendations, language, and sometimes questionnaires that public health authorities are using in order to understand the level of stress, for example, or which kind of information they process, how attention drops as you repeat the messages, the wash your hands, the everything that we've been observing, to try to inform and to provide some additional information to public health authorities, and tell them, you know what, actually, when the speech of a head of state expands further than 7 minutes, there is a huge drop in visual attention when people are in front of TV, or when they thank people for 3 minutes, people just switch their attention. When you're inaccurate, we got an increase in cognitive stress that is being measured. This kind of insights, which are not pressing a button to have a perfect way to communicate to people to help them, but as long as, in the case of COVID-19, there is no vaccine against COVID-19, the only way to efficiently fight this virus is by changing behaviors. And we need to understand a bit better how people process information and the gap between what they declare and what they experience in their brains, if we can, in order to better inform policymaking.
Got it. Awesome. I could go deeper and we could have, I think, a full hour just on that. But yeah, I wanted to make sure that people hear about it, and then either if they have questions, I think this was a good platform. So thank you, Olivier. We'll come back in a sec. We'll switch to Christoph Guger, CEO of GTech. Where do we start? So let's do the same exercise with the elevator pitch. So for those who don't know GTech, Christoph, how would you introduce GTech?
So GTech started about 25 years ago with brain-computer interface technology development, and it was also the first BCI system that we really sold. So the first system went 1999 to Cambridge University. The second one went to South Korea, to a large research organization. So GTech designs hardware and software components that allows you to do all BCI principles in the non-invasive, but also in the invasive domain. And over the years, we developed a lot of technology which goes from the brain sensing also to the stimulation. So now you can run this closed loop experiment. So you can also do functional electrical stimulation, deep brain stimulation, cortical stimulation. And this is all coupled to the brain sensing with the EEG on the surface, but also directly on the cortex with the ECOG. And especially with these closed loop experiments, you can get brain-computer interface technology much more efficient because it allows the user to learn the control. And this is a research platform that many universities and research centers are using to develop their own projects and applications. And a few years ago, we started also with medical products, which are used in rehabilitation centers. This one is, for example, Recoverix that you can use for stroke rehabilitation. Even 10, 20, 30 years after the stroke, people improve if they are training with the brain-computer interface. Another one is MindBeagle that you can use for coma patients to figure out if they're able to understand conversations. They can also answer sometimes yes and no questions. And this gives you a very objective proof that the coma patients are understanding you. The third medical application that we have is CortiQ. That's a functional mapping system, which allows a neurosurgeon to identify the eloquent cortex within a few seconds so that he understands what he should not remove from the brain. And 2 years ago, or actually 3 years ago, we started also with a brain-computer interface for the maker community. This is our unicorn brain interface. So it's just much easier to handle, much less flexible, but it still has the electrodes where you need it for brain-computer interface control. And this allows you very quickly to set up high-resolution BCI control for many different applications. So these hackathons are very inspired by biomedical engineering guys, programmers, neuroscientists, artists. And they work together to control, for example, drones or robotic systems, functional electrical stimulators. Or one of the teams developed a very nice computer game where 2 users can play together. Or they built also a gin tonic robot where you can control the amount of gin and tonic depending on your stress level. So these very nice events for bringing BCI technology to many, many people.
So you're CEO and running a successful company, doing Brain Ohio hackathons, GTech webinars. You did the GTech Spring School, which defeated all the BCI records for audience attendance with like 4,000 people registered to. So normally I would ask the audience to join me for a round of applause, but I don't think that it would be as impactful as it would be in person. But I think that was a lot of people, really well organized. So props with that. The BCI award as well, that GTech has been pushing, promoting, organizing. You do have 26 publications in 2019. When do you sleep?
I sleep very well, and I need about 10 hours a night. So I'm not in a good shape if I sleep less. So we have a big team doing all the work. So I'm just coordinating a little bit. So I do everything what other people don't want to do. So I try to keep my engineers efficient, and I'm already too old to be a good programmer. So I need young PhD students and biomedical engineers, computer scientists for doing all this stuff.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We'll definitely come back in a few minutes. Let's dive into the OpenBCI, open source, open hardware world for a minute. So Joseph, same exercise. Your background is a little bit different than Olivier and Christoph, not coming from academia in the neuroscience brain world, but more from more on the, I would say, the business side of things a little bit, and now director of marketing and business development at OpenBCI. So how would you pitch OpenBCI?
Yeah, thanks, Yannick. I'd say OpenBCI, we've been making open source tools, both hardware and software, for neuroscience since 2014. We're pretty happy to be in 87 countries now. I keep track of that a lot. Just incremented it up from 84 last week. And we try and keep track. I mean, really why OpenBCI started was just to create tools that people would use for science. We wanted to see what else people could create with affordable hardware that was transparent and documented and provided free access to the raw data. So my background, very different from the group, and hopefully, can inspire some of the people in the audience who don't have their PhDs yet, that, there's not insurmountable obstacles there. I knew Connor Rusumano, who started the company back in university, and just advised on. My background is marketing and digital advertising. I worked at WPP, which is a big global agency, for a while. I worked in London at a company called AppNexus for several years, and then I worked in New York with Salesforce, which is a tech and consulting and a little bit of everything company now. And I've just been advising Connor on marketing and business and some strategies for the company. And about a year ago was when OpenBCI had been doing well enough to make some full-time offers, and I was looking for a new and exciting challenge. And it worked out that, I was able to find a position within the company that worked. And the last year has been an incredible learning experience and opportunity to just get involved with so many different people out there that are using our products to do things that I didn't know were possible. And that's my favorite, it's my favorite part of working with OpenBCI so far. It's just like every week there's something new that I get to email this person, how did you make this? Do you want to talk about this? Can we share this? So it's really interesting to see what people make with our hardware. That's why I do it. And
how do you make money with open source, open hardware?
Shockingly, you can make money just by selling people stuff and them paying for it. And then you set up an online store, you make a product that is priced right and people want, and they'll pay you for it. People think that you need subscription softwares to make a business for anything now. Yeah, it's great. It's a really good way to make a business. You'll make more money. But there are a lot of new business models and old business models that still apply even in new technology markets. And what we've been going after is really people need some hardware that they can use, that they can prototype on, that is easy for them to read the documentation for. And that's why we go after the open source angle so much. We think it's really an important side of it.
Awesome. So, well, we do have a couple of questions from the audience. So in order to give me a bit of time to read the questions and repeat them, I'm going to send a little poll because I'd be interested to know in the audience and you speakers, I'm assuming that you will get the poll as well, but otherwise I'd like to have your opinion. So we do have the consumer aspect, but let's go back a little bit in the more invasive space. And we talk about Elon Musk, Brian Johnson, people who wanted to go more invasive and implant brain chips to improve cognition. So if we could have a chip that improve our memory tenfold, you can control your memory. The surgery is painless, risk-free. It's been done 1,000 times, no side effect. It just works and it's free for everyone. Would you get the brain implant to improve your memory? So let me start the poll for everybody, as I would like to know who would get the enhancement and who would not. So I do see people raising hands. So I'm not sure if that's linked to the poll or not. You should have a poll where you can answer yes and no. I don't know what devices, what platform you're using. But yeah, you should have we do have a lot of answers already. I think we do have now 94, 95, 96, 97. Well, you get the idea. We currently sit at 72% yes, 28% no. So that's interesting. So I'm going to close the poll. So roughly 70-30 at this point. And we had 113 people who answered the poll. So thank you very much. Share. I'm going to share result. So you should be able to see the result. So very interesting to see that 70 people. So it's probably biased within the community. Obviously, where NeuroTechs are probably biased towards more the yes answer. Awesome. So we do have a couple of questions. The first one more towards Emotive. So you can all unmute yourself if it's easier just to rapid fire, or mute yourself if you feel that you're making background noise. But is Emotive a B2B or a B2C company?
Both.
Both?
Yeah, both. We sell directly to consumers, but for example, Emanate so far is a B2B product where basically we work with large-scale organizations in order to integrate the technology in the workplace, amongst other things.
Awesome. Is Emotive allowing access to EEG data for developers?
Yes, provided that the developers have a subscription to our API, absolutely.
We do have, and these questions were from Chris Michalani from Toronto, I assume. We do have another question from Alexei Timchenko. Hello there, would like to use an opportunity to ask experts of the field 2 questions. What do you think is the future of EEG BCI? I mean, couldn't they be too limited in features comparing to invasive or MEG BCIs? So what would you answer to the future about EEG BCI? Christoph, do you want to take a first stab at it?
Sure, of course, it's depending on the application. And there are many applications where the EEG is just the signal quality that you need. So if you look, for example, at brain assessment that you're doing with coma patients or communication with locked-in patients, then the P300 potential is just perfect because it's all over on the brain. We know exactly where we should place the EEG electrodes. It's just important that you put it on the vertex or surrounding electrodes, and then you can pick it up very easily. And locked-in patients, coma patients, and so on can communicate or answer yes/no questions. So there's no need at all for an implant. The same for stroke rehabilitation. So we deal with motor improvements. This means we need electrodes over foot, hand regions, exactly over these representation areas, and we can pick up the source signals with very high resolution and control, for example, exoskeletons or functional electrical stimulators. So there's no need at all for an implant. But if we go to other applications like single finger control of an avatar, then the EEG is not good enough. You need a high resolution ECOG over the sensory motor cortex, and then you get the high spatial resolution so that you can control single fingers in real time, even faster than the person is realizing that he's imagining the finger movement. So this means you have to go to implants if you deal with these applications, and the EEG is not good enough anymore. But there are still so many applications which are not even developed at the moment in the EEG domain. So we will be busy for many, many additional years by using the signal that we have.
Would Olivier or Joseph, would you add anything to the future of EEG BCI since you're in that world?
Go ahead, man.
I think Christoph nailed it. I mean, I think it's going to be, the stimulation side of it is going to be a part of it. You know, we're very focused on reading out from the brain, but in order to kind of create the gains that people are selling as the future of EEG and future of BCIs in general, you need to be putting, you need to close the loop, as has been said a few times, and, putting information back or providing feedback back to the user. Now that can be as simple as a little red light that tells you whether or not you're doing the thing you're trying to do, or, way more complicated with some of this type of stimulation stuff that GTech offers. So I think, the future of these types of devices, it's going to be read and write. I'm also interested in the second part of the question, but I can wait, some of the obstacles. If
I think what's interesting to me is that whenever we talk about BCI, we're talking about controlling all these amazing things, controlling exoskeletons, controlling wheelchairs, and which have amazing consequences in people's lives. If you think about controlling wheelchair or interacting with a computer, providing people who have lost the mobility to interact with a computer is reopening access to work for these people. This is great. But then there is something that is a little bit simpler, such as the fact that you can create responsive interfaces that already exist that would provide people feedback on whether they're distracted or not, whether they're stressed or not. And then that will allow to, in real time, with a closed loop, customize their work interface and customize the day of work. So it ranges from these amazingly complex things to some things that look simpler, but are still very complex. And I'd say that, well, I think we're going to talk about the obstacles afterwards. So I'll stop here.
So if we were to use the Thorsten Zender's breakdown or categories of BCI with the active, passive, and reactive BCI, especially in the EEG modality, you would bet more on the passive BCI? Olivier?
I'll say there is a huge regulatory issue. The fact, one of the key issues at the moment is that all the people who raise their eyebrows, their hands, or go to government to talk about potential issues related to neurotechnologies in general, are talking about neurotechnologies as a monolith. And basically today, unfortunately, in a lot of countries, brain stimulation is regulated the same way as just monitoring brain activity. And there should be at least two categories, at the very least, because some of the consequences of brain stimulation require a different kind of regulation than monitoring with NIRS, with EEG, or even MRI. And I think that's part also of the issue. The technology will be ready way before, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to implants, will be ready before regulators are ready to accept it and to allow it to be mainstream. And unfortunately, from a scientific and technological point of view, and very fortunately from a human and societal point of view, we need to deal with these regulatory issues. They are part of the ecosystem. And just looking at the tech itself is not enough to be able to predict or express preferences.
Love it. Great. Great segue actually into the next question from YouTube. Because yeah, we're live streaming on YouTube as well. So we've got a couple of questions there. Will the brain-computer interface field ever reach its full potential using non-invasive EEG, or will alternative recording methods or invasive solution be needed to conquer the major frontiers? So let's talk about the other modalities maybe first. We've seen FNIRS more and more popular, whether it's from Facebook, Mary-Lou Jemison, FNIRS at large, just the optical imaging field, let's say, using light to measure brain activity. I know that Christoph, you do, GTech do have a hybrid system with FNIRS. So do you think that the future is more towards FNIRS based system, the combination of both, like hybrid system, or other modalities like sound and others?
Like before, so it's depending on the application. For neuroscience applications at the moment, it's very interesting to look at both, because the EEG has a very fast temporal resolution. So you can capture very short thoughts very efficiently, and this enables also a very fast communication or control of something. The FNIRS is very slow. This allows you to capture slow moving or changing brain processes that you are missing with the EEG. So it's a very nice extension to the EEG. And when you are recording both, you can just use both types of information in your neuroscience applications. If I look at the communication device, then I wouldn't use a FNIRS because the time lag is too long. But if we want to monitor, for example, pain, and we want to do pain neurofeedback, then the FNIRS is very nice because it has this long latency and you would miss the events in the EEG. And for that reason, it's a very efficient tool for many applications in the future.
Joseph, any open FNIRS project in the cooking?
Yeah, we're looking to get a new product into the store next month that just has like the proof of concept version of, FNIRS. So stay tuned for that. But I mean, I think it's gonna be like the way that this field develops. It's Christoph saying it, and he's right. It depends on the application, and it's going to require a mastery of multiple modalities of sensor technology to get the right answer for different things you're trying to accomplish. EEG is a bad tool to use for like issuing commands for movement. Like people keep trying to make EEG things for that when the subjects actually still have muscle activity that could be way more controllable and easier to use. And EMG, our muscles are really good at that already. Why do we need to reinvent the wheel from the top of the head? So I think it's just going to be like our research activities right now are just how do we create systems that allow for data collection from multiple different sensors at the same time and add on additional sensors and combine that with audiovisual stimuli. So, I wouldn't say it's just going to be EEG or just going to be FNIRS or one will be better than the other. Pay attention to all the applications and multiple different ways to use the sensors.
Building on what Joseph said, yeah, it's interesting. As long as you can use your EMG in order to control things, absolutely, it's much better. But there are a lot of people who can't, unfortunately. And this is also part of what we can provide with EEG for disabled people. And because at the end of the day, if you think that EMG is the best way to control things, I would say my fingers are even better than EMG at this stage.
Sure.
No, but so for me, at a personal level, from the way I've always approached neuroscience, for me, neuroscience is a behavioral science. And I'm more interested in every signal from the kinetics and the kinematics of striking keys, head movements, acceleration, facial expressions, all this peripheral information, and how we can build models that connect different ontological levels of measuring human brain and peripheral expressions of that brain. And this is what we're working on. The idea is really how, at the very end, can you build a virtual brain that would not require the senses. For me, the holy grail is, can we at some point get rid of a brain senses, whether it's NIRS, EEG, and having collected enough data of how the neuronal activity or the brain activity correlates or is coordinated with behavioral outcomes, to have a virtual brain that helps. This is far, far, far from now. I'm not even sure I will see it before Alzheimer's hits me. But yeah, on my end, it's much more other modalities than just piling up a bunch of different ways to evaluate brain activity, because most of the time we're not measuring it, we're just assessing it from other expressions.
Awesome. We're having a lot of questions, so we would definitely need I see that the time is flying by. We do have another 22 open questions from the Q&A. We do have questions on YouTube, so definitely this is a topic that resonates with a lot of people. I'll try to start with combining some of the questions and themes that people are addressing to bring as much value as possible to the audience. But I cannot necessarily state the question as is. I'll try to join the different teams. So a lot on the MEG aspect of things. Have we seen improvement? And is that on the magnetic side of things to look at brain activity? We all know kind of like the big machine that goes over the head. Have we seen anything towards the portable MEG? Brian Johnson with Kernel just announced something in that realm. So what could you say on the improvement of MEG and the future of that in the BCI world? I don't know if any of you want to take a stab.
I'm very old school. Bring me the scientific papers and I would love it.
Do you think that we will see that happening more in the consumer, not necessarily consumer, but portable, so outside of the big machine in the big room?
If Brian and his team are doing it, they have very good reasons. They are smart people, they have a lot of capital, and they have fantastic intentions. So why not? Why not? Awesome. I'm super excited. I mean, I'm a total NeuroTech geek. I want to test it. I want to play with it. I can't wait.
Awesome. So I don't want to speak too fast, but I reached out to Brian Johnson yesterday, and he wants to. We'll do an event with him. So I don't know if it's going to be on week 3 of this series. So I don't want to speak too fast. But spoiler alert for those who want to know more about MEG and Kernel's activity. Stay tuned for NeuroTechX. The best way is either on Slack or the newsletter to know when that's going to happen. So if Brian, you can put the link of the newsletter. Stay tuned. We'll definitely announce that. I think it's going to be an awesome event as well. So in terms of the invasive versus non-invasive, I don't know if Christoph, also people are talking about speed of BCI. So let's start with non-invasive with EEG devices. What is the bandwidth or speed of current EEG BCIs, either in kind of like bit rates, or how do you, if you could explain how you measure speed yourself in the BCI world for communication and control?
So either you are just counting the number of characters that you can type in, for example, per minute, or people are measuring information transfer rate. But you have to keep in mind that with an EEG-based system, you will never beat a joystick or a computer keyboard. But there's also no need for doing it because keyboards are already pretty good. So you should measure something which is invisible with a keyboard, joystick, or a mouse. And in our hackathons, teams designed, for example, very nice computer games where people were working together. So one person used the keyboard for controlling a Super Mario. The other person used the brain-computer interface to mentally destroy obstacles. And if they work successfully together, they can do the computer game level very quickly. So you have to extract something that's hidden otherwise, and you cannot extract it with a keyboard. So that it doesn't make sense to replace a keyboard with a brain-computer interface. If you implant the electrodes and you decode, for example, motor movements, then you are even faster than the person is realizing that he's now moving the finger. So from the planning phase that you want to move your finger until it's really moving, it takes 1 second because it involves a lot of process. It sounds very long, but if we have implants in the brain on the sensory motor cortex, we can extract this information within 100 milliseconds. So this is before you are even aware that you are moving your finger. And this is very promising. If we put electrodes, for example, on the fusiform phase area, more or less on the bottom of the brain, then we can extract information if a person is seeing a face, if seeing a symbol, seeing colors or black and white shapes within the same time frame. So before the person is aware what he's seeing, we can already identify what he's seeing, and so brain-computer interfaces with invasive technology are dramatically fast, and this is very nice. And you can even enhance the effect with brain stimulation. So if you stimulate electrically or magnetically, these very small magnetic stimulators that are implanted are also coming up, then you can even enhance the control speed of the BCIs because you can provide sensory feedback, for example, and this leads to better control of hand prosthetic devices, for example.
Great. I'm looking at the time. I want to be respectful of the time. I do have actually 2 questions. So panelists, would you be willing to stay a little bit longer so that we can go through some of the other questions? So I would ask you perhaps kind of like a 15 minutes extension, if you're okay with that. We're just going to announce tomorrow. So Christoph is awesome. Thank you very much, because we still have a good 140 something participants with a lot of questions. You're providing a lot of value, so I'm really enjoying it. Thank you very much. I'm just going to kind of wrap up ish for those who have a dead hard limit at 2 p.m. Eastern time, just to make sure they get information for tomorrow. And then we'll continue with some more questions for another 15 minutes. Sounds good? So let me just find so first announcement. So tomorrow I'm gonna ask Matvey if you can show your camera and unmute yourself and talk about tomorrow's day, because we do have an awesome speaker tomorrow as well, who's gonna talk about.
Hello, everyone. As a co-organizer of this event, I would like to tell a few words about tomorrow's event. So as you have seen in the agenda, we have different events through all the series. There are lectures and practicing sessions and also such discussions. Thank you all the participants. Tomorrow we'll have a world-known speaker, Michael Lebedev, who is great scientist in the area of brain-computer interfaces, and I'm pretty sure he will give us a nice overview and will go also to the details from the point of view of the researcher. So he made a lot of scientific papers. One can find information in Google or on our webpage. Just if you do not know him, just go there and also join this event. I would like, if I can also do such a thing about extension, thanks for your agreement to extend for some time this series, this event. I would like the participants to ask to raise a hand if you think we can extend for 10 minutes, just to yeah, we'll count how many hands we have raised.
See the number just.
Yeah, because Yannick told that you're not allowed. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so we'll think. I would also like to announce the NeuroBar. I think Yannick, or you can talk about this a bit.
Yeah, so tomorrow, thanks Matvey for announcing tomorrow. So we will have a NeuroBar tomorrow. It's just a casual Zoom call, password protected, so we don't want Zoom bumping and Zoom trolling in the call. But it's going to be not a webinar where we push on one side, but really where you guys can come with audio, video, and just have a chat, casual chat. We'll start with 2 rooms. We'll have invasive, non-invasive. You'll see the links, and you'll receive all the information by email tomorrow morning. It's going to be after Mikhail Lebedev's talk, so at 2 p.m. Eastern time, or you can do the math for other time zones, but it's going to be right after his talk when we're going to open 2 rooms. We'll try to limit the number of people so we can have a discussion. So that's not kind of like 100 people and just listening. We want that we're really community focused. So we want to have some engaging discussion. So this is a first try. We'll see what the response are, and if we do that more in week 2 and week 3. So if you're interested, pay close attention tomorrow to your email, and you'll have links, information for the NeuroBar. So
and
the
there's
rule is
one
simple.
requirement.
You come with audio, video if possible. You have a drink. Tea is a good drink. Doesn't have to be alcoholic beverages, especially if you're on the Pacific time zone at that time tomorrow. And just have casual talks and discussions around NeuroTech and BCI stuff.
Yeah, but the drink is a requirement, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. A drink.
A drink. Okay.
Awesome. So thank you. So continuing with the question, I think that a lot of people, and we're gonna have that tomorrow with our two rooms, invasive and non-invasive, in terms of the, what do you think is more likely to be pervasive or at scale? The invasive side, who has more potential to understand and read the brain, but also is invasive by nature, and the other one, which is non-invasive. So if you have to bet on the future in, let's say, 20 years from now, 30 years, let's not go in 500 years, but not in 5 years, more in 20 to 40 years, do you think that we'll see more of the invasive or non-invasive BCI devices being more mainstream and at scale?
Non-invasive. It's my bet. During my lifetime, I don't think we'll get over the surgery requirement at scale.
Olivier, what's your take on this as a neurogeek and scientist? So you have the wishful thinking.
Yeah, well,
and
I'm also a guy who's got a lot of problems with self-proclaimed futurists that predict whatever's going to happen in science and tech. Generally, most of these guys, by the way, don't have a scientific or tech background, so check them. So I don't know. Uninformed guess would be just like Joseph, for practicality reasons and also for regulatory reasons. First, non-invasive, because it looks easier. It looks in appearance, but real answer, I don't know.
Christoph, on the GTech side, you do have some invasive stimulator. So you might have a bit more insights of the regulation, the process, the complexity of invasive BCIs.
So if you look a little bit at the research side, then of course people started first with EEG non-invasive stuff, but the invasive neuroscience experiments are highly increasing, especially because of the brain stimulation to build closed loop scenarios, which is completely new and opens so many possibilities to do. If you just look at the number of users, the non-invasive brain-computer interface, which will be much more distributed, of course, than invasive ones, because the implants will only be done in patients. And thankfully, there are much less patients than healthy people. So we can put them in Parkinson patients, Alzheimer, depression, but the numbers will never reach the healthy applications that will also be developed, of course, which is of course very nice for us. But the impact on the individual side of the invasive implants is of course very high. So if you look at the tremor of Parkinson patients with the brain stimulation, suddenly he can have a nice life again. So it's really important for the patient. On the other hand side, if you play a computer game with a non-invasive BCI, that's nice, but not the impact for the person is not so dramatic, but the numbers will be much higher.
What, just another very quick poll, I would like to know what the audience think about invasive versus non-invasive BCI. As Olivier mentioned earlier, I think it's important as a society, from the regulatory decision, but also as society, as we evolve with that technology, with that NeuroTech future, to engage in these discussions. And for NeuroTechX, it's really important to be at the forefront of these discussions. So this is why these questions and these polls give us a bit of a sense of where we're going and how we evolve over time and how these numbers change over time as well. So quick poll on the invasive and versus non-invasive. So the question is the following: I believe the future of BCIs is with invasive or non-invasive. In my question, I said the 10, 20 years, but you can extend that to maybe more in the 40.
There should be a third answer with both.
That's
actually good. Christoph made a very good point. Let's say that for some reason we've got something that could be comparable to an epidemic of Parkinson's disease in 15 years. It's totally science fiction. But then maybe public authorities will throw money and ease the regulation for implants in order to address the issue if the issue unfortunately becomes mainstream. So part of its future can be dictated by the issues.
So FDA has already a guidelines for implants. So companies can already follow this guideline, and it's already happening.
Sure, but that's one piece of the puzzle. The fact that FDA has approved doesn't mean that society wants it. And having dealt just in France and at the EU level with regulation of neuroscience back in 2011, when the revisions of the bioethics laws have, for the very first time in any country, included neuroscience, what the health agency was saying was actually barred at the end when it came to applications by parliament members and senators that had no clue what they were voting on. So yeah, FDA is one thing. Let's see who bars the FDA after all.
Very, very good points. So we'll dive into another topic that a lot of people are asking about: schools, career path programs, and how to get in the field of neurotech and have a fruitful career in the field. So first question: would you say that that you need a PhD to work in neurotech field, or you don't need a PhD to work in the field? Olivier, you're saying a hard no.
No, because there are so many jobs that you can do in this field. I mean, the field is so wide that there are jobs for people with PhDs and jobs for people without PhDs. So by default, hence you don't need one. Depends on the job you're looking for.
At the moment, it's very widespread. You need, of course, a PhD if you want to do neuroscience research, because you need publications, you have to write research grants. That's all very nice to learn how to do. Doesn't make sense without doing a PhD or having a PhD. You need the scientific environment, conference and everything. But we have, for example, biomedical engineers, so they do the experiments. Then we have computer programmers, they program the systems, the software, the BCI environment. Then we have people focused on the algorithms to do the signal processing, they studied IT. Then we have electrical engineers that design the hardware. Then we have physiotherapists that apply the devices with stroke patients. Then we have other therapists that work with coma patients. So you need plenty of different types of employees or people working in the BCI field.
Yeah. I don't have a PhD, and I'm not planning to get one. So there's some indication. And I mean, as the field grows, as the number of businesses involved grow, and as the size of the market grows, there's, like we have technical resources that we hire for that the PhD isn't a requirement, but it's certainly like a great indicator of expertise in a field. But we need community managers, we need marketing people, we need people that can do customer support, we need people that are able to write well. One of the things that I tell people when they ask, how do I get into this? Or if it's a student group, I often just say, like, put something out on the internet that expresses your, write about a project, even if you did a terrible job on it, or write about your experience learning about this topic, or write about something you created. Because when we're hiring or when we're looking at candidates, somebody having like, hey, here's this thing that I did last year that demonstrates my sustained interest in this field and demonstrates my ability to, communicate my thoughts clearly in a written form. That is like a huge plus for, for people doing hiring. So it's not a complete requirement, but having a PhD, but demonstrating your interest in the space and, showcasing what other skills and what angles you want to get involved in, whether it's writing or more technical side, is important.
And so a lot of people are interested in joining neurotech companies. So what would you suggest? So I think that Joseph, you answered, but Olivier, Christoph, to join either Emotive or GTech, what do people need to do? What kind of profile you're looking? And you can generalize to the industry, but for your companies, what would you recommend people do as a path? If, for example, the undergrads to the grad students that are listening right now.
Reach out, stream, make waves, show that whatever skill you have, we don't have in-house. I'm always interested by two things: people who are better at this thing than me, and there are a lot. And second, people who are who have skills or interests that we don't have in-house. For me, this is the best way to grab my interest. I spend so much time interacting with people and that have crazy ideas. I mean, I'm old and I'm obsolete, and you got all these young people who are doing crazy stuff with and without PhDs. And generally, the good ideas without PhDs because they don't have some professor that formatted their brains. And it's a business. At the end of the day, we're talking about science inside a business, and we got a lot of CEOs in pharma that have never studied biology. I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. I'm saying that there is no prerequisite. What we need is people who come with crazy ideas that are not limited by what they learned in neuroanatomy 101.
I actually have a question. I have a question I would, wanted to ask everybody else involved was, so my background, coming from my last sort of year working in the advertising technology space was the emergence of GDPR and, everything that brought along with it. I gave a lot of talks about that. And it's interesting because for a while I was like, these two fields aren't related. I'm doing something totally new. But how do we sort of learn from the mistakes, or if they were, how do we learn from what's happened with the internet, where like what you click on and what you search, and if what I like on Facebook is valuable enough to create wealth, the size of the market caps of these companies that have emerged as giants, how do we sort of avoid the same mistakes happening with data on the own human body? Like, so, if what I click on and look at is as important as it is to Google and Facebook, what is missing, or how can we try and make the future of biosensing data, less, concentrated with a few key winners? I don't have the answer. If I did, I would, be running for office in multiple countries at once. But, I'm just curious to hear if anybody else has thought of this a little bit.
Christoph, any advice in terms of getting, or if you want to piggyback on what Joseph just mentioned?
Yeah, the advice for students is, of course, to get in contact with experts as soon as possible. So we get many applications every single day. So it's very difficult if you just see the application on paper. So visit hackathons, do internships, do projects at companies or universities where you want to work. So meet the professors. Do something together with them, and suddenly you become an expert, you become important, and you get a job, and you can work in the domain that you like. So you need personal contact. Meet people somewhere and ask them if you can come for an internship. That's a good start, and then extend to a master thesis, to a PhD project, or whatever.
Very, very good advice. Yeah, obviously networking and knowing people in the field and reaching out. One of the questions from Guillaume earlier on, as an electronic engineer, what path would you suggest to work professionally in NeuroTech/BCI industry? So more on the electrical engineering side of things. What, Olivier, you were mentioning, like project, make waves, talk about it, Christoph as well. So electronic engineer, do you have any suggestions what someone could do, or what path actually they could take?
Send me a video of something you built that is not related to NeuroTech, but we want to see what people are doing. And it's like craftsmanship centuries ago, you would demonstrate what you can do with your hands. Now it's your hands and everything else. But yeah, I hired people who are, because they showed me they could build something that was not related to neuroscience. But my gut feeling after the interaction, as Christoph said, the personal interaction was that was the right kind of skills that we needed at that moment.
Awesome. So to summarize, build something awesome that shows your skills, reach out to someone to show the skills and try to land a job. Can be NeuroTech related or not, just show your skills and make waves and talk about it.
Hey, if you're a DJ and you want to DJ at that dream place of yours whenever it's going to reopen, you're not going to go there and just say, hey, I'm a DJ, I want to DJ at your place. At the very least, you need to provide a mixtape. So yeah, make your own mixtape.
And I feel that that example was a bit personal, Olivier, on your side, because you're DJing as well.
Yeah, but that's the thing. This is how you get the deals. It's surprise me with your mixtape and your creation.
Got it. Awesome. So I see the time. We do have still a lot of questions open. What we're going to do is a couple of questions where I can try to answer chat-based. If the panelists want to also give us a few questions, answer. Some of them were directed to some of the speakers. So we'll try to answer a couple of questions, and all the remaining questions we'll make sure that we address them across different events. So come back different events. Some of these questions are really good, really open, requires a bit more time. So these are a really good question for the NeuroBar tomorrow. Yeah, we'll try to answer these across the different events, across the series. And if you would like to ask the question on Slack as well, where they are more general, a lot of people on Slack could definitely help get you more visibility and answers on your questions. Sorry if we could not answer your question directly. We had a lot of questions, limited time. I personally enjoyed the talk with the three of you. Guys, thank you very much. I want to apologize to the community. However, I just realized that we had a 4 white male panel, and as a community, it's not the lack of awesome women in the neurotech field, just thinking about Tanley, for example, at Emotive, but as a community that prides itself with inclusivity and diversity, we could have maybe had a better representation of the field today. So just felt that I could apologize for that. But yeah, we'll try to answer more of these questions. It was awesome, the format. If you have any feedback on the format, if you liked it, didn't like it, you would have done things differently. We're bottom-up organization, always open to feedback. So reach out to us on any of the platform, info@NeuroTechX, if you don't know where to start, and just send us honest feedback on what you like and what you would like to see next. So any last word coming from you that you would like to address? Any plug that you want to make, upcoming events, or just general message? Olivier, Christoph, Joseph, anything you'd like to share?
Everybody should come back. You're doing a great job, Yannick. Very nice.
Yeah, thank you. It's great. And for people who are looking for a job in this wide space, you got 3 companies that's for people who are not in the space. Some people might perceive that we're doing the same thing, that we're looking at the same kind of partnerships, clients, etc. And there is some common technology, and there are some different objectives, different business approaches, etc. And this is also part of the choice: is what company, what goal aligns with your values, with what you want to do. And the more players we have, the more diversity we'll have, not only in the technical offer, but in the approach. And I think that's great. I just want more people. And if there are people out there, don't come and work for us, create your own company and just populate the damn field.
That's one inspirational speech to close. Joseph, can you top that?
Nope. But I will say that NeuroTechX is one of the first places I send people when they're like, if it's sort of fresh out, like, hey, what is this? I saw an Instagram video, and I'm like, you should go read NeuroTech, EDU 101. They have a great website for it. And then you should join their Slack and you should start talking there. So Yannick, thanks for, helping shepherd so many people into this industry in the first place. And in the meantime, stay tuned. We'll have a bunch of stuff to announce at the end of the summer, like September time, about some new products. So that's my plug. And it's been great being here.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Once again, thank you for the panelists. Go check their website, follow them on social media if you want to continue to engage with this awesome discussions. And I hope to see you all tomorrow. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, now maybe I can answer the questions because I couldn't. Freaking